Okay, my friends, this is going to be fun. This is about the Artemis 2 spacecraft that went out around the moon and came back to Earth. It's all done, it's concluded. And these are the people talking about it. It's one of the astronauts, Avi Loeb from Harvard, and the moderator. Now, I'm going to go into this and show what I see on the moon compared to what they see on the moon. All right? Okay, here's what they see. Now they call these flat regions mares. All right, and this outer surface is this red region of hematite, and it's rusting. There's a little bit of oxygen out here, but the moon is rusting on this surface here. Now look here closely. You see how flat perfectly this is? And you see how this is like wrinkly, almost like somebody had a scab on there and pulled the scab off, and underneath is smooth. Now, then there's this in the middle. Think about this for a few moments, and why would that be a round spot like that in the middle? I am going to tell you right now, there was something attached to this, and it got ripped off. And that's what left all these scarred regions around here. Was this red stuff came off with the column tube that ran down to here, and these two spots, I will show you what they are in a second. All right, here it is right here. This is our moon. This is just exactly like our moon, exactly like, I think this is Tetris. It might be Mimas, I am not sure. But you see all these little divots in here and all the little divots in here? This is biology right here. And this was the attachment of the stalk. And it got ripped right off of ours, and it got ripped right off of this one. All right, our moon had an attachment like this, and it just got ripped off and left this wrinkly little red stuff, which is hematite, which is basically bloody, fleshy sort of stuff. Hematite is made out of iron. Iron is in the blood. Blood is in the flesh. Flesh coats these balls in the body. Normally it's saturated in there to hold it, so these are anchors so they won't pull out. This ripped off, and these two are the artery and the vein. And then there is two other ones that service the lymph duct. And you can see it. Let's go back and look again. You can see it, and if you know anatomy at all, you understand this is a tendon enthesis. That's the artery, and that's why it's red. And this is the vein, and it's a little different color, and a little dot in the center, I believe, is the restriction valve to come, because veins can only go one direction, artery go anywhere. Now, this was where the center of the cord was. It popped off, and with it, it ripped off a bunch of basically fleshy sort of stuff. Now, this mare right here is the membrane that coats this ball, which is the moon. Below that membrane is a layer here called titanium. It's a flash of titanium in that layer, in this layer, which is the metal ball of what the moon is. And I believe it's pretty much metal. Not sure of that, but it's exactly like the Milky Marble. All right, these Milky Marbles are everywhere, Utah, Arizona, they're just virtually everywhere. Now, they're made of stone, not metal, and they have a flat spot on each one has a flat spot. That's where the stalk was ripped off. And they have titanium coating around the outside of them. And so does our moon. Okay, so you can obviously see these are layers. That one layer coats the yellow. The yellow coats the blue. Well, the blue has a lot of titanium in it compared to everywhere else. Why does it have titanium in it? I claim this is identical to the Moki marbles, only much, much bigger. The Moki marbles have a flat spot on all of them, they claim, which I agree probably more or less flat, which is the same as this. And then they have this titanium layer, because all of this stuff has been eaten away. This is all edible stuff. This is all edible stuff. It's fleshy. But down here you start into the stone. All right, so we know there's titanium, and the titanium is primarily in this layer. And I say this is a Moki marble, and they say the Moki marbles have a layer of titanium like vapor coated around them. Okay, I'm saying just like one of these, the moon is one of these, only it's absolutely gigantic. And these are the Moki marbles, and they're sort of a metal core outside. And it says here, some of the Moki marbles are vapor coated with titanium. It's exactly what they have found. In that layer right there is titanium. And all of the rest, this is edible, and that's edible. And then you're down into the non-edible stuff. This here is edible, down where the core goes in, because you got biology going into there. This is more stony. And those Moki marbles are everywhere. Now, just so you know, that the moon is good size, you know, for being a tendon anthesis. This again, I think this is Tetchus, but Mimas has a big spot, I think, like this. But all of them are tendon anthesis, as far as I'm concerned. Not all of them out there, a whole shooting match, but most of them. Now, this is not the only kind of biology that's in space. It's these tendon balls. Right here, you got a hip joint. See this? That's a hip joint. That's a hip joint. The one we have here is fractured right off here. This is Comet 67P. This is in 2014, 2015, right in that area. They went up there and landed on there. I followed that as closely as they did. It was the Philae lander. And they landed right up on there. They took samples, they tested them, they did all kinds of things. And I contacted with them, and they, you know, we ended up saying, they just said, well, it's organic, that's all we can say. And it is. It's got the aromatic hydrocarbons, which is just nothing more than meat smoke. And then the biology is amazing, and the smoke comes out when the sun hits it right. You see right here? Here's what we're looking at. The sun isn't hitting anything to cause like a microwave oven to burn anything type of thing. Well, let's see when it gets into the sunlight just right. And this is just right. The sunlight is coming down, hitting right into here, which is the artery. Huge. It's 500 feet across. This thing's gigantic. This is all the little tendon anthesis. I mean the tendon fibers that come out of here. So we've got the hip joint, and we've got everything that makes up a hip joint is here. All the biology. Now this is how big this thing is. This is Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the size we're talking about of this hip joint. These things were good size. Full grown, as you'd say. And we saw them giving it off gases. We saw what it is. We saw that it is basically a hip. There's no other way to, you can't deny it, basically. And the boiling is coming right out of the, hold on one second. You see that? That's 40 meters. 1, 2, 3, about 4 times that. It's about 500 feet, something like that. And that's what was boiling all of that meat smoke. And it's polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. And I actually had the tests. I have the tests right here of what they took from Kenneth and Juliet. These are the two molecules that they tested. Two different areas. But they're basically the same. Maybe a little bit of difference on iron oxide is hard to tell. But you'd expect some little bit of difference depending on where they took it from. Now, so this is up in space, right at Comet 67P. They're doing this chemistry. Now, here we come down here to Murchison, which is a meteorite that hit Earth. And they're comparing the chemistry. Now you see the CHs way down here low, and these CHs are way up here. Well, the reason is CHs are hydrocarbons. They burn off coming through the atmosphere. This was a earthly meteorite. This here is just out in space. It hasn't burnt up coming through. So this is 100% accounted for. This is very, very similar. There is some differences, and that heat would account for some of these little differences, but almost exactly the same chemistry. And again, they agreed with this. They said, yes, that's true, it is. And there's nothing we can do about it. It is what it is. And so if you got to be able to understand biology, chemistry, the anatomy, and then you got to be able to have a mind that's willing to accept and think deeply about what is actually seen. Because if you don't have any truth, if you just want to push something aside because it's not comfortable, then your life really, literally, to me, is meaningless. You don't have the ability to accept reality. That's a fatal flaw as far as I'm concerned. Here's another asteroid, meteorite, whatever you want to call it. And this is Oumuamua. Avi Loeb said that could be a spaceship coming through. And it's pretty good size. I'm not sure how big it is. But it is literally a finger. All the way down to where you have the blood supplies, which is the vein and the artery. These two are the tendon that goes over the top. It goes over this way. This is the bottom of the finger. This right here is where the bone is. You see all these little things here? That's right there, and it goes like that. And this is the other side. All right, does that make sense? You can see that? And this is over here. Now, all these little tiny holes have little tiny tendon entices in them. They're called epiphysis. And they're inside here holding this solid so it won't rip out. And this tendon turns flat like this and runs up to the apical tuft. And the apical tuft is up here, and a bunch of tendon balls wrap into here, so it gives it nice tough strength. And this is what an apical tuft is. Right here. And it sits right there at the end of the finger. And these turn into balls, and they turn big balls like that into all over this thing. I have every single thing that you can think of as far as anatomy goes. All right, and the same thing comes down here. It's tendon. I showed this to one of the top anatomists I think is probably in the world. He gives lectures everywhere, and has his own business actually in anatomy. He does all kinds of autopsies and so forth. And he said, yeah, it's a fingertip, no question. And that's the grip skin. On your fingers and toes and all that, you have a real thick skin, and it peels off. And it's all of the fleshy stuff underneath is all peeled off here. And now we're down to the tendon. And that's right there. And this was here is right down here. So that's right here.
Roger.
Yeah. Okay, sorry about the interruption, but this is everything in space that I have found is biological. And I have a meteorite here, a little tiny meteorite. And that's a lung. I've shown this very, very clearly. It has the latch that the lungs have on them. Right there. And I show it in the microscope. You can see it very easy. It's magnetic because everything's boiled out of it primarily down to the mostly iron, which is the blood. But it's not so big that it created enough heat to completely melt. So I have this one. I have a couple of other meteorites here too. And one of them is another body part. And that I can show, and as far as I'm concerned, nobody can deny it. And I have, well, hold on. Let me just do that later. What I want to do is to make you understand, this is reality. And I actually had to shut off the comments on the last video I did because of, you know, I'm just asking you, please respect the fact that I do research in space, at Mars. I look at the moon. I look at everything that NASA does. I don't necessarily believe everything they show. And I think a lot of times I find them, I have to be honest with you, incompetent to not understand what they see. All those things that I just showed you are denied by the top minds and pushed back against so hard that they can't be spoken about. So I'm not giving anybody any extra anything, and I'm not pushing down anybody. I'm showing evidence. You see this? When they took the gases right out, they know what it is. It's polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. It's identical to your gas grill. The smoke comes off your gas. Identical, not a single difference. And you know what? The moon, the sun is as well. The sun gives off the same molecules as that, as we do have in our body. All right? Think about that. The sun gives off the same chemistry as we have in our body. And the astronauts, when they go on space, and they go out on a spacewalk, and they come back in, they take their suits off, they say it smells like steak. Everything's out there cooking. Just the way it is. We have the same giant biology right here on Earth, right in front of us. This is skin, and this is the stretchy stuff that's right under your skin. And these little balls are the anchors. Those little balls are the same as the moon. It's just what it is. This is skin, and these are those little balls. And these little balls right here are Moki marbles. And they have a titanium coating on them, just like the moon does. And they have a flat spot on them from where the cord was ripped off. This is how many of them there is in skin. This is skin too. That white is skin. The red is flesh. The balls are the same as the Moki marbles, and they're completely coated with flesh. And they're being eaten now until they'll be eaten down to nothing more left than the core, which is metal. And this is mud, which is nothing more than eroded flesh. All right, don't forget, Utah, Arizona, everywhere out there, they're covered with these balls. And the flesh has eroded away, just leaves the balls. This is going to happen to these at some point in time after the moss has eaten all the good stuff and left the metals. And here's what it's going to look like. Here's up in Alaska. These are green because they're not in salt water. It's a different type of moss. Every one of these is being eaten. Look at them. They're everywhere. And that's because this is fresh water, but it's the same process. It's the same tendinenthesis. The little tendon balls. They're everywhere. They're everywhere, 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 everywhere. Now, this is what they look like inside. There's the ball. And there's, I believe it's probably fleshy around to about maybe this area here. And all of these little plants are growing their way in. And it rolls this way. The whole thing of them roll this way. You see it rolling back? And the reason it does is it wants to grow and that grows, and it comes down and it goes around. These come up around, and they grow, so they all roll in the same direction. And that's going to be the Moki marble. And our moon is one of those. I'm sorry, it's just what it is. Okay, my friends, I'm just going to ask you respectfully, drop the flat Earth stuff, and there's no space, and there's no, a dome around the Earth. We can't get out through it. It was just nothing but that today. I have to pull this one down because I had to turn the comments off. These people are so fanatical about this flat Earth stuff, it can't be stopped. So I have to turn the comments off. Now, what you're actually doing is working for academia, because you're making it, the Earth is not flat. And they sent the thing around, the Artemis 2 around, and it came back to Earth. These are not things that are deniable. And to come up and just assault my channel with that, I think what's going on is academia is putting either you behind it, or they're putting bots up there to go and make all these comments. I mean, just an unbelievable number of comments, because they don't want me to be seen as a serious researcher. So I have to pull this one down, and I'm going to ask you, don't comment on that flat Earth stuff on my channel. If you do, I'm sorry, I'm just going to have to remove you. All right, this is just respectfully. I don't care what you believe, but right now the Earth is not flat. That is 100% undeniable. We sent the Artemis 2 around, and it came back 100% undeniable. And the Earth is round, 100% undeniable. And we went to Mars, and we have Curiosity out there, which is absolutely stunning stuff they sent back, and I show that stuff too. So every time to be assaulted for people just say, oh no, that's not true, that's not true, that's not true, that's not. Well, yes, they went out there. They went out. And there's dragons here, there's all kinds of things. This is what space looks like. I've been working with people that, it's incredible. Look at this. That's a town in Sicily. Dragons were real. All of this stuff is real. But it's substance. I have the substance to show it. To say the Earth is flat is not good. It's ruining everything that I do. All right, that's all I have to say. I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you. But please, keep off of that stuff, or I have to remove you. I have no other choice anymore. Thank you. Okay, my friends, I'm going to try to make this as simple as I can. I do a lot of research with molecules, and they are formed in space. The sun emits all kinds of radiation, and Mars, the moon, all that stuff is in this mix. And I study all of that stuff. Very important to me to be able to study that stuff and allow it to be seen. And unfortunately, people are attacking me, and I think it's the academics, and trying to make everything that I say turn into an argument about flat Earth. And the Earth is not flat. It's a globe, and I understand the solar system very well. I understand Mars. I understand Venus. I've seen the scars on Mars and Venus. I've seen the impact on us in the Grand Canyon of Venus. I wrote a book called Mudfossils, Velikovsky, and Minds in Collision. He wrote Worlds in Collision. All right, mine's 99 cents. You just read it on. I'm probably going to put it out in paperback. I don't know what I'm going to do. But this goes back 10 years ago. And at that same time, it was just a flood of flat earthers, because I was showing giants. I was showing giants were real. They were actual, really giants. And then academics came in and said, this guy's crazy. If you believe him, you have to believe the Earth is flat. And you have to believe there's a glass dome around Earth. Or the Bible says all those things. And all of these real deep Bible believers, they signed on to that. And they still do today. I can explain these things, but to have this continuous argument about the Earth, and I just had to take down a video. I'm going to take it down and do it over again. But here's one that goes back 8 years ago. I had to turn the comments off. This is 2018. And I talk about flat Earth. They just continuously bombarded I had to just remove actually about 50 flat Earth comments this morning. It's very hard to deal with because they're really working for academia, trying to make my channel look silly. The Earth is not flat. And we have been to Mars. Mars Curiosity found some amazing things that support my statement that everything in the universe that I can see, everything is biology, including all the mud fossils on Earth, and they're in space. I showed. Well, hold on one second. All right, I'm going to leave it at this. I know I was very redundant in the last video. I was terrible. I had so many interruptions. I kept going over the same thing over and over. That, as you can see, is the tendon ball, and that's the strap cord, and that's where it rips out of. Now, I'm going to try not to get too crazy here. Where I showed you the tendon antithesis. They're everywhere. They're everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. And in us, they're microscopic. They're microscopic, but this is exactly what they are. They have that flat spot on them where the thing attaches. So remember all the things I talked about. Go back and see it again if you have to. But this is a tendon antithesis from some creature. I don't even know how to explain it. But the planets, everything is, I believe, is what they described in the ancient mythology. And they all have names of ancient mythological creatures, basically. So I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you. Have a nice day. And please, respectfully, don't give me this stuff about nobody's ever gone to space and all that kind of stuff. It was just, I had to actually stop the comments because of the way it was being attacked. So I'm going to put this one up and take the other one down. All right, just give me a little respect, all right? This is where I do a lot of research out here. If you want to believe something else, that's fine. Go somewhere else and talk about it, but don't do it here, please. All right, I love you. Thanks. Bye.